Hey guys, Spud here, and today it's June 9th, 1982, and we've just come off a strike on an SA-2 guideline battery in the Bekaa Valley as Operation Mole Cricket 19 unfolds all around us. And unfortunately, we are getting really low on gas for being this far north in Lebanon. But not to worry, as of the latest DCS World update, Heatblur has brought to us the ability to use the new air-to-air refueling probe for probe and drogue type air-to-air refueling here in our F-4E Kernos. Now, we do have to do a little bit of Lua coding editing in the game files of the F-4E in order to make the probe work. So in this video, we're going to delve into how to do that, and then we'll jump back to the cockpit for a demonstration on probe and drogue air-to-air refueling here in the F-4E Phantom II. Now, a little bit of history, because this is a very, very cool modification to the F-4E Phantom II that was really only done by the Israelis. Now, this was done out of pure necessity by the Israeli Air Force. Prior to 1967, Israel was a teeny tiny country, roughly about the size of New Jersey or so. As a result, the IAF really didn't need to maintain a large standing tanker force, because anything the IAF's fighters were going to do would be relatively close to the borders of Israel and the many airports and air bases spread through the country. However, after the 1967 war, the size of Israel expanded precipitously with the inclusion of the huge Sinai Peninsula. And then in 1973, during the Yom Kippur War, a number of IAF crews in Kernoses, Ahits, Nashirs, Mirages, all kinds of aircraft ran into extremely critical fuel exhaustion type of situations coming off of strikes or air-to-air combat. And so as a result, the Israeli Air Force knew that they really needed to develop a tanker force. And of course, it's much easier to bolt some drogues onto existing aircraft than it is to come up with a boom and receptacle type tanker that was used by, say, the US Air Force. In the very early 1970s, even prior to the Yom Kippur War itself, the Israeli Air Force modified their C-97 Stratofreighters and turned them into local indigenous KC-97 Stratofortresses. But that old B-29 derived aircraft just wasn't fast enough to be able to refuel an F-4E Kernos. However, they were able to once in a while give some gas over to some A-4 Ahits. Now, in the late 1970s and early 1980s, as the IAF was starting to phase out the A-4 Ahit, they simply just ripped the probes off of the noses of their A-4s and bolted them straight onto the sides of their F-4Es, and then plumbed them directly into the existing air-to-air refueling system in the spine of the aircraft. So it is a super interesting and very cool piece of history, and that is kind of why it has that very distinct A4 Skyhawk type of air-to-air refueling probe shape, and why it's kind of bent down towards the nose of the jet at sort of an odd angle. But trust me, it still works just fine, and we'll take a look at that in the third part of our video. So let's jump over to my desktop and we'll get started with editing the game files of the F4 so that way we can actually use this probe with the tanker. We're here on the desktop of my PC, and we'll jump right into editing the Lua code for the game files of our F4 here. First thing we'll do is we'll open up the latest changelog that came with the last DCS World update, because it does contain some instructions here. I'm also going to copy and paste these instructions and put them in the show notes down below, as well as pinned in the comments section as well. But there is a little bit of an issue with this particular line of the instructions, and we'll correct it here in this video so that way you guys don't have any confusion as you're trying to do it yourself. So we'll go ahead and open up the install folder of our DCS World install. I currently have it installed to a separate E drive that I called my game drive. However, if you haven't changed where you've particularly installed your copy of DCS, that'll be in your C drive under your program files. But just note that if you did move it, you'll have to look somewhere else. So we'll open up the DCS World folder. We'll go to the CoreMods folder, the Aircraft folder. Then we're going to find the F4E directory. Then we're going to open up the entry folder inside of F4E, and we're going to open up the F4E.lua file here. This is essentially the controlling file that really allows DCS to interact with all of the parts of the F4 Phantom module. So at this point, I highly recommend you guys go ahead and get a Lua editor type program. I use Notepad++, but there's a number of them out there and you'll figure out which one is your favorite. This is the one that I find to be the easiest to use, and it's much easier to use an editor than it is trying to use Notepad to edit Lua files. So at this point, we'll go ahead and hit Control F to find a particular line. We'll go back to our instructions here, and we're going to search for tanker underscore type here. I'm going to hit Control C and Control V to plop that down here. We're going to hit Find Next. And then on this line labeled tanker underscore type, we have a couple of green instructions here. 0 for no air-to-air refueling capability, 1 for air-to-air refueling by booms, that's going to be boom and receptacle type air-to-air refueling, which the aircraft is set to by default, and then 2 for air-to-air refueling via basket, so it's going to be, of course, probe and drogue type air-to-air refueling. So we'll just take this value here, we're going to hit backspace, put in a 2 there, and then we should be set and ready to go. Now, we have another line that we need to change, and that's going to be air underscore refuel underscore receptacle underscore pause or position. Now, this is going to be a line that is just a few lines down here, right at the bottom of this little block that we just edited. And this here is going to be telling DCS World on an X, Y, and Z coordinate grid where the actual spot is on the aircraft, where the aircraft is going to interact with the tanker. So we need to change this from telling DCS World it's going to be the tanker door, and we need to change it over to the point of the tip of the probe itself. And again, we have some green instructions here to guide us. This is the refuel coordinates for the door, is this value here, which is set by default. And then for the probe is this following value here. So we'll go ahead and we are going to highlight this value. We're going to hit Control C to copy it, come back over here. We'll highlight this original line here and hit Control V to enter in the new point for the tip of the probe, where DCS is going to have the F4 interacting with our tanker. And guys, then once we have it set there, all we need to do is hit File and Save, and we are set and ready to go. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is whenever you do a DCS World repair or a DCS World update from here on out, it is going to delete this now modded F4E.lua file and replace it with an unmodded version in order to ensure that everything is copacetic within your DCS install. Now, a good way to avoid that is to copy this F4E.lua file and then pop it into a mod manager such as OVG SME. So that way you can just very easily pop the mod in and out with the press of a button after you have a DCS World repair run or a DCS World update. Keep in mind, editing this F4E.lua file will break integrity check, and if you're using the F4E expanded weapons mod for things like standard arms and harms and things like that, you are going to need to make this edit to the F4E.lua file within that mod itself, or they will mutually overwrite each other. Alright guys, we are back in the office of our F4E Kernos for our demonstration of probe and drogue air-to-air refueling here in the F4. Now, we're using a KC-130 tanker for our demo today because in the mid-1970s, the Israeli Air Force started to procure the C-130H, and then locally slapped on some air-to-air refueling drogues to create an indigenous KC-130H, very similar to how they did that with their previous KC-97 Stratofreighters. So we'll go ahead and start to set up our cockpit here. We'll make sure that we fence out and we get our external lights on, and we will make sure that we get our TACAN set correctly. That's going to be 112 X-ray. That's on transmit receive, and we can see now we're getting good direction as well as DME from our C-130's TACAN. And then we'll need to tune our radio to his frequency. He's going to be on UHF 251.0, so just pop in a 1 there and flop our radio over to manual mode, and we should be good to go. So the reason why the Israeli Air Force started to procure the KC-130 instead of relying on their old KC-97s is simply because for an F-4, the KC-97 just could not fly fast enough. It's an old radial-engined freighter-type aircraft, whereas the C-130 is a turboprop aircraft, so it can fly quite a bit faster and make air-to-air refueling a heck of a lot more comfortable here in the F-4. Now, you can find some very cool old pictures of some, I believe, California or Nevada National Guard RF-4Cs air-to-air refueling off of a old KC-97 in the United States. But the AOA those F4s were pulling is absolutely incredible, and they are configured in a completely clean configuration, whereas here we're a bit dirtied up with some fuel tanks that are empty at this time, as well as some bomb racks. So that definitely wouldn't be very fun for us. So looks like our tanker, I've got him visual up in front there, so we'll go ahead and have Jester go nose cold.
Copy.
Now, normally Jester goes nose cold automatically when air-to-air refueling with the boom and receptacle type tankers, and so far he seems to just be a little bit confused when going up to a MIPRS 135 or a KC-130 here in DCS so far, so my recommendation is just kind of do things a little bit more on the manual side. Alright, switch is safe, nose is cold. Let's go ahead and contact our tanker. So we can see here he's going pretty darn slow, even for an F4 at 250 knots. So it's going to be a little bit challenging, but it is historically accurate. If you're a mission maker just making fun missions in DCS and you're not trying to be historically accurate, I recommend setting up your tanker to be a 135 with a MIPRS pod. And that'll make things a heck of a lot easier because he can fly a lot faster. Now, I'm just flying a nice little intercept vector on him at the moment, and the way we can do that in an older aircraft like the F-4, or even a modern aircraft with our nose cold, not using our radar, is if we can try to fly to keep our tanker in a stationary spot in our windshield or canopy. That's going to mean that we're flying a nice little intercept vector on him. And you can kind of see here, even as we're closing with the tanker, getting closer and closer, we're just keeping him right in the same spot on our canopy, just to the left-hand side of the canopy frame. He's at 15,000, so that should be good. Should be noted here, this is my first air-to-air refueling attempt with the KC-130, so we'll see how it goes here. It's 3 miles out now. When it comes to air-to-air refueling in DCS, I know a lot of folks tend to struggle with it, but it's really just keeping to the dictum, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. If you try to rush it, things go wrong, and it ends up taking even more time than it would have taken otherwise. So we're basically paralleling his track at this point, so I'm going to go for a little bit more pure of an intercept on him. So it looks like we're basically chasing him from the tail at this point. So we'll start to bring our nose on around to the left side here. You can see that technique of really just trying to keep the tanker stationary in your windshield really makes a big difference and makes it a lot easier for a nice, smooth, and easy join up with the tanker. Pull the throttle back to idle as we start to link up with him. Ooh, tanker, you're flying right into the sun. Make sure we're trimming her out. A little bit of speed brake. And you can see, even here, trying to fly intercept on a KC-130, we're starting to pull quite a bit of AOA. So it wouldn't work all that well if we're loaded down with tons and tons of bombs and tons of fuel going out for a strike. It really is just best to hook up with a 130 when you're coming back from a strike. Okay, we'll go ahead and we will open up our air-to-air refueling door. And we still have to open that door when we are using our probe. And it looks like he's in the turn. No problem. Alright, so we'll slide from observation left on back behind the drogue. And of course, because we have that drogue, or the probe I should say, right off the right hand side of our canopy, we're just going to slide the drogue right down the right hand side of our canopy, and we're going to try and put that drogue right into the right temple of our helmet here. So again, we're just going nice and slow, nice and easy. Whoop, starting to drift a little bit.
Ready for contact. Clear contact.
Alright, clear contact. Oh, we drifted away from a little bit. That's okay. Kind of lost it a little bit as I was trying to get in that cleared ready pre-contact. So there we go. Now we're looking good again. Nice and gentle, nice and easy. Coming right down the right-hand side of our canopy.
Nice. We're taking fuel.
Boom. Contact right there. Alrighty guys, now that we are in the basket and we're starting to get our fuel here, let's talk about why I think it's advantageous to go ahead and set the probe installed on your F4s and your multiplayer missions regardless of country, whether you're flying for Israel or not. And that's because it's really going to be advantageous for your players, because air-to-air refueling evolutions are going to be a lot faster, as well as they're going to be a lot easier and more forgiving on your players. And there's really no advantage to boom and receptacle air-to-air refueling type here in DCS other than realism, because unfortunately the flow rates of fuel between boom and receptacle and probe and drogue are the same as of now in DCS, so it still takes the same amount of time to get all of the fuel to top off an F4 or any other type of jet, whether they're doing boom and receptacle or probe and drogue. And probe and drogue in DCS is just so much more forgiving because we have such a wider range of spots we can maintain around the tanker while still getting gas. The hard part is getting into the drogue, the easy part is staying in. With boom and receptacle refueling in DCS, it's just very, very difficult because it's a lot less forgiving. You have to maintain a perfect spot right on the tankers. And as you can see here, guys, I'm bouncing around quite a bit behind this C-130, and yet I'm still receiving gas this whole time, and it just makes it a heck of a lot easier. And we're starting to come up on 9,000 pounds of gas internal, so we'll go ahead and call that good, and we'll just back slowly out of the drogue. Make sure that we don't have a wingman on the right hand side, and we're just going to slowly slide on over to observation right. We'll form up on the tanker. We'll start to pull out our crab that I usually go for when I'm air-to-air refueling. We'll close up the receptacle door, and we are set and ready to rock and roll to make it back home to Ramat David. So, thank you, tanker. We definitely love you. It's definitely better than running out of gas over the Sinai back in '73, that's for sure. Alright. And we'll go ahead and break off from the tanker, and we'll abort the refuel so that way the next player can go ahead and get his fill of gas. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helps you set up your new air-to-air refueling probe in the F4 here. And I think that this is an absolutely fantastic addition to DCS and will make multiplayer missions run a heck of a lot smoother because air-to-air refueling is going to be a heck of a lot easier. So if you guys liked the video, please leave a like and a subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Fly safe out there and enjoy this beautiful game. We'll see you in the next one.